do you think the position where people's like, if I just can push the button and then the insight spit out, what I was want to do that. So do you perceive a future where like there would just be a always on usability monitor for the experiences the customer really care about, like the product builder care about, and just automatically run usability testing without work, but without
I don't have a crystal ball, but if I were to make my prediction, I think you're absolutely right. I think the roles of product managers, designers, TPMs, engineers are going to converge very quickly into the middle role. And we are seeing that across a number of companies. Microsoft, a friend of mine was mentioning Meta is going through a similar evolution.
So is training an AI model has anything like similarity with teaching a students? I feel like sometimes like, me and my friend just like, yeah, just treat the AI like a, as assistant or like an intern, like, and then you'll be fine. Set expectation, right? I guess, are there any similarity in teaching the AI model versus teaching a student? But because right now you can't talk to the AI model and understand their needs. Welcome to UX Stories. I'm your host, Lee Hong Hicken. My co-founder Chris and I built Daysets after we scaled usertesting.com from zero to IPO. For a long time, I thought we had the formula of customer empathy figured out, but AI changed everything. The speed of listening is now 10 times the speed of building, right? We build Dayset now because we want to use the speed of vibe user testing to match the speed of vibe coding. My guest today is Apurva, SVP and head of product at Invisible Technology. I won't talk about a lot about Invisible Technology, but you probably know 80% of the AI companies in the world uses them. You also are a rare hybrid leader at Chegg. You also are director of both product management and US. Now you are leading a 30-person powerhouse across product, design, and ops and Invisible. So an impressive background. Amazing to have you on the show today. Tell me a little bit about who you are as a product leader, maybe a US leader, and how did you get to where you are working at so many impressive brands and serving millions and tens of millions of users across different products?
Look, thank you for having me here, first of all. It's been a real pleasure. And anytime someone mentions user or product or user research, I light up a bit because it's the reason why I love being a PM. I've been in product for a while, so the risk of dating myself. Chapter one of my career was as a backend engineer, where I worked with really stellar engineers at Microsoft. I was a founding member of the Windows Azure Commerce team. And then I moved on from an engineering role into a product role, working on consumer products, being search, then Amazon search, launching digital media products to the world. And the highlight of that chapter of my career was working alongside brilliant minds, having impact on scale of billions of users across the world, but really understanding how good software is built. The first principles, you think about your users, you think about their problems, you then build for scale, you build for, those were some of the highlights. And then chapter two of my career was taking some of those learnings to newly public tech companies. I was at Chegg and then at Upwork, and helping those companies scale, running large P&Ls, but helping them scale from their newly public status into 20-30% year-over-year growth curves that they set for themselves. And then chapter three was at Invisible, has started at Invisible about a couple of years ago. And here we work with Frontier Labs and with enterprises to build AI enablement products. And so I think the through line across these, Lee Hong, to come back to your question, what I love most about my job is really being able to sit down with users, with clients, and setting aside what we bring to the table, just understanding, what problems they are solving for and why those problems are the most important. And the ways to solve for those problems have really looked very different in every chapter. One, it was building code. Chapter two, it was like, running prototypes and design sprints. And today you can literally build an idea as quickly as you're thinking of it in your head. But while the solutions may look different and the tools in your toolkit might look different, I think the joy that comes from building is really the through line across all these chapters.
That's cool. That's great. It's like a first principle, like, understand the customer need, build a product to serve their need. But there's something in common. Like, I know in Chegg, you build learning experience for your students and then actual how they process information. Now at Invisible, you are overseeing the pre-training and evaluation for Frontier AI labs. So is training an AI model has anything like similarity with teaching a students? I feel like it sounds sometimes like me and my friend just like, yeah, just treat the AI like a assistant or like a intern, like, and then you'll be fine. Set the expectation, right? I guess, are there any similarity in teaching AI model versus teaching a student? But because right now you can't talk to the AI model and understand their need.
Such a great question. I think about it a lot because not only have I worked in EdTech and not only am I working in the space of training models, but I also have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old at home that I teach. And to be very honest with you, there are patterns. If you were to teach a child, let's say, a new approach to solving math problems, the way you'd go about it is first help them understand the problem and make sure you're picking out pieces of information and context that are buried underneath. Make a list of those and then work back from a clear end state to the solution, apply the frameworks plug in the information and pieces, and then come to the right answer. And then finally, when you grade that answer, you actually look at it and you say, okay, is this accurate? Is it complete? Is it comprehensive? Is it legible? That's how you would define a rubric to say, yes, this is a good solution to a problem. Now, you take that to a student that I built products for while I was working in EdTech. Very similar patterns there. When you're building pedagogical patterns, you do want to work back from the topic or the domain, of course, that you're teaching. A science problem and a math problem presumably looks very different from a language or an arts problem. But you take the problem and you take the context of the domain and you define what good looks like through a rubric. And then you have a step-by-step approach in more STEM-focused areas, and in other areas you reward, creativity and innovation and expression. So you take now that forward, play the movie forward to AI models. Guess what? It actually doesn't look that different. When we are building models, we there are different components to it. There's first a component of creating what you call a task that the model,
Yes.
which is basically defining your problem. Then you have a rubric, which is, okay, if you are to grade this particular task, how are you going to grade it? What are some of the criteria by which you're going to grade it? And then you create, like you would for a student, you would create mock questions or you would create practice exams. Similarly, for a model, you go out there and you create practice tests and you create simulation environments. And you take these pieces together, the task, the simulation environment, the rubric, that's what becomes a reinforced learning environment. And that's where what these days is called a reinforced learning gyms, where you throw the model and the models go out and they perform the tasks. And then their solutions are evaluated against the rubric. And that happens in runtime with very little human input today. And so the models are learning on the fly, which is why you see them get as smart as they are. A long-winded answer, or to say that if you break it down to the core first principles about how you teach someone something, there isn't that much difference today in how you would teach a model and get AI to be smarter compared to how you teach a child or how you design a learning product.
Yeah, totally. I've seen videos of like robots learning how to pick up household tasks, like folding laundries, cleaning the living rooms, and they've learned some of those themselves. It's just like super fast, and that's fascinating. Watching you, your face lit up when you talk about teaching the robots. It was like you surely enjoy doing that. So one thing I'm curious, like one of your superpower besides understanding, how product is built, is that you're really strong in UX. You understand, understanding customer needs and stuff. At Invisible and then also at Chegg. I think at Chegg, of course, you mentioned you use usertesting.com, order unmoderated testing, maybe test your prototype. That's a while ago now. But at Invisible, I guess now compared to a Chegg days to now, is your product building process change? I feel like with AI vibe coding, now you can build so much faster, but the feedback process is kind of stuck in the 2013s. And doesn't, I mean, user testing is pretty quick in terms of it can get feedback pretty quick, but it can't get the target audience, like B2B audience, that quick, or existing customers. Also, some people are saying like, well, I can build things so quickly. Engineering time doesn't need to be protected. If I guess it wrong, I just rip it apart and build again. I guess right now, compared to the Chegg days and now, do you guys have any change on how you build product and gather feedback?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the biggest difference is in how expensive it used to be versus how relatively cheap it is today to test your way into a menu of options with your users. And when I say expensive, I'm not just talking about dollars. I'm talking about time. I'm talking about the setup. I'm, of course, talking about the headcount, but the resources needed as well. But as recently as 3 years back, if you were a PM looking to get a CEO bought into a new product idea, well, what would you do? You would first, you would, of course, do your market research and establish who your ICP is and why you want to play in that ICP and why you're positioned to win and have a competitive moat to play that ICP. Do all of that research upfront, which even today, for what it's worth, absolutely must be done. There's no getting away from that. And yes, of course, you could use, tools to help you do that research faster, but that must be the first step before you consider building a new product. But let's set that aside and let's say you're at the point where you have a strong hypothesis that you want to go out there and test. 3 years back, that would mean a PM sitting with a designer and building out, a prototype that would take easily on the order of weeks to build, and then get that in front of your CEO, your C level, but also in front of users, most importantly, and make sure that it's resonating. And then rinse repeat to the point you feel like you get gotten enough qualitative signal. My magic number is about 7 or 8. After you had about 7 or 8 user research interviews, you start to see patterns. But that was 3 years back. Fast forward to now, you can get to that point in a matter of hours. As long as you kind of user interviews lined up, you can do that rinse repeat. You can go from your menu of options to a single winning option in a matter of hours. And I think to come back to your question, that's where I'm seeing the biggest delta in how work was done in the past and how work is done today. And that expedites everything, right? It expedites the velocity of your team, it expedites the overall level of effort needed by your team. That's where I see the biggest change compared to a few years back. Now, when you layer in consumer versus enterprise versus services, of course, that applies differently. Meaning that in the consumer world, you probably still want to run qualitative tests and A/B tests to get to a point of statistical significance. In the enterprise world, you just cannot. A/B testing is incredibly hard, and so you have to lean on certain marquee logos or use cases giving that signal. So that's where variances come in, but that is a function more of who your ICP is and what your business model is. But if you set that aside for a second, I think Apple, from an apples to apples perspective, the speed, the velocity, the iteration, and therefore the alternate quality of the product that you build is much higher today as a consequence of the tools that we have.
As well said. So you're saying you see the biggest speed increase because you are now able to visualize your ideas with clickable prototype and put in front of your target audience. That's
Much faster.
interesting. Much
Much-
faster because there's no code prototype tools like Lovable, V0, Replic can put your ideas into this and you can put in front of the target audience very quickly. That's very interesting. We were looking at something else. It's more like we do AI moderated testing is like putting that one step forward, like you have the vibe coding, the vibe design that you already have, but how do you get the feedback of getting the feedback quickly rather than scheduling those calls, conducting those calls, analyzing results, but more like intercept the right target audience on your website or send these linking or this to get people record a speak loud section on your prototype ideas, and then AI analyze all the ideas, find trends, and see like how do they react to your prototype and this idea. So is the last bit of the feedback where you now have vibe coding, vibe design, the vibe user testing that we're trying to close the loop.
I think that's a powerful concept too, and I may be a bit biased by my more recent exposure to enterprise and to B2B customers versus B2C, but I can totally see in a world where you have a ripe and ready B2C audience, there are the time it would take to manage the logistics of just going through user testing is also a fraction of what it was in the past, because you can automate all the steps in the process, whether it's reaching out, finding the right audience, curating the right audiences, then getting the actual process of doing the interviews and analyzing them. All of that can be automated, and it doesn't need to be bottlenecked on your single user researcher anymore. And you can actually put their expertise to better use because now they had insights they can analyze versus having to do the raw work themselves. So absolutely, I think that's also a vector that can drive more value into the product.
Yeah, definitely. I think also B2B and hard to recruit participants is especially valuable because you can't get those people from the panel. So that's why a lot of our customers will intercept from their website or in product. So typically one is a A/B testing. So let's say you intercept people who are currently in certain part of the website and say, ask them record a video of what they do on the website and say, hey, we're planning to improve this part of the website experience. And here, by the way, here's a prototype of the future new design. Interact with it. Which one do you like better, the current status quo or the future one, and why is that?
Yeah.
So it kind of involves existing tenant of the existing user of the website to give practical experience, and that I think is invaluable to do. Yeah, so cool. That's great. I guess I want to talk a little bit about the team and the skill sets for the future of the product teams, right? So I watched a podcast of the CEO of Microsoft. He mentioned that they had merged Microsoft product team from a front end coder, back end coder, a designer, a product manager into one role, which is one product builder, right? So it's like one person now had to master the skill of the design, masters the skill of product building, use vibe coding, and then of course somehow you have the US skill, and then you do that. So I've talked to a lot of people in the industry thinking what their opinion about this. Some people are thinking, US is not my expertise. I just want to do security. I just want to do this XYZ. So I just outsource all my UX work to a third party agency, right? So, and then some people say, wow, I want to touch everything. I want to learn everything. So now this product manager had to learn all skills. And then some people are saying like the people who, with AI, a lot of people get let go, and the people who stay actually had to do more work. And
Yeah.
you had to rely on these AI to do all this work, but you're just one person. What's your outlook and like the future of the teens, especially product teens? Like, what is realistic? What is healthy?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but if I were to make my prediction, I think you're absolutely right. I think the roles of product managers, designers, TPMs, engineers are going to converge very quickly into the middle role. And we are seeing that across a number of companies. Microsoft, a friend of mine was mentioning Meta is going through a similar evolution. So I think I absolutely see convergence. At the same time, you still need seven colors of the rainbow, right? And you still need people who are builders but are domain experts in security, or domain experts in user design and user experience design, or domain experts in backend. And I think while the goals may converge and the titles may converge, I think we'll still space for people to add value in ways that align with their passion and their areas of expertise and find a home in these cross functional teams. So I wouldn't be too worried about that convergence. Quite frankly, yes, the next few months, maybe years are going to be chaotic because, you're going to have to reconcile career pathing and titles and skill sets and roles and responsibilities. But ultimately, the people who stay and thrive, I think, are the ones that embrace this moment in time that is so rich and ripe for building, and they just find their joy in that. And they may hold on to pieces that they enjoy and let go of pieces they don't. And the beauty of it is that you can delegate what you don't enjoy as much to AI today in a way that you couldn't in the past. I think we can safely say there are aspects of each of our jobs that we don't enjoy as much. And so today you can just delegate that. You can have a skill, you can have an agent, you can have an agentic team, and you can delegate it to them versus having
Yeah. Okay. So you're still pretty positive in like how the world will shape out with a maybe like AI agent and a human like collaborative, in doing the tasks.
I
Okay.
think so. And that was a second prediction, so to say, that I was going to make, which is there's no question in my mind that we are going to see hybrid teams, just like we saw hybrid teams, many years back when we moved from centralized workforces to global workforces. Just like you saw hybrid teams after the pandemic, where some people were remote, and some people were in person. The reality is, I think, in the coming months, we are going to see a shift to hybrid teams where you have agents on the team that are doing end-to-end work and that are integrated into your full design team, into your full PM team or your full builder team, and are doing specialized roles, and you delegate to them. Because the reality is we use digital tools in our day to day, and so that becomes the cohesive tissue across where people do their work. And you're going to see some AI team members, and you're going to see some real humans.
That's awesome. All right, let's go into some rapid fire questions. The first rapid fire question, since you have this crystal ball and prediction, I will ask one prediction. Well, a lot of people say they love the insight come from usability testing, but they don't like to do the work. So do you think the prediction where people like, if I just can push the button and then the insight spit out what I was want to do that. So do you perceive a future where like there would just be a always on usability monitor for the experiences the customer really care about, like the product builder care about, and just automatically run usability testing without work, but without project.
You know what I would love? Yes, yes, and I would love a dashboard that I can go to every morning and look at and see not only the key metrics and how they're trending, my business health, but like where there are trends or inflection points. I would love to see like we have statistically significant data that suggests that this decline was because of this issue in the user experience. It preempts a need to do a lot of A/B testing in the first place because you
And
can
then and then you can click on it and watch the video.
the funny thing, Leon, was like I would have cautioned, like, just because it's that much easier today to get access to all these interviews and data, shouldn't mean that we work away from first principles, right? And you
Right.
still make sure that you're reacting to data and insights that are statistically sound. And, yes, AI can automate a lot of it, but AI should still use a scientific basis to make recommendations. And that's where the EVAs come in. Yes.
Yes. All right. Second prediction. So some people love the AI personas to give feedback on the functionality of the test, but they still say the human insight will never go out of date. The human's insight will give preference, solution, problem, and sentiment. So basically, do you feel like which one will become more popular in the future, more big, the AI persona or the human persona? Which one will become more of a niche?
And just so I understand, are you talking to the persona that's conducting the interview, or are you talking to the persona that is going to give feedback?
Feedback. Give feedback like AI persona that trained by the behavior of your human persona. So it's like
Yes.
AI persona doing user testing videos, doing surveys, doing interviews.
Well, the whole purpose of user testing is to get a qualitative read, right? It's not to get a quantitative read; it's to get a qualitative read. And like I said, my magic number is 7. When you put a product experience with a menu of options in front of 7 to 8 people, you start to see patterns. I don't think that's a very expensive or a tall order, and I would be very reluctant to delegate that to AI personas of those 7 or 8 humans. I would absolutely still want to, if it's whether it's recordings or live conversations, still make a space to listen to at least 7 or 8 of my users talk about their products. So I would trust that signal from live humans versus
Okay, you're the team human, not a team AI. Okay, cool, cool. That's awesome. All right, thank you. I love all your predictions. We'll see. I will, if can, I will just put the money to bed. I agree with you. You and I are the same line on this. Well, last question as we wrap up. What's the most feeling part of being who you are and doing what you're doing right now?
Do I have to pick one? Can I pick 3?
Sure, come on.
Just kidding. I think, frankly, nothing lights me up more than working with users or customers, whether they're existing or prospective, and just, immersing myself in their world and understanding how the many solutions you can design can solve their problem. It's easy as a builder to start building, but I think the first step is always listening and analyzing what you hear. And so I think that is the most fulfilling, part I play in the product development process. I think second is just working alongside really excited, energized, like curious, hungry teams. And I'm proud to say well, the team I work with at Invisible exemplifies that in every shape or form. Where yes, it's hard, yes, it's complex, yes, it's messy, yes, it's chaotic, but what isn't in today's world? And when you show up to solve problems with a positive attitude and a curious mindset, like I think how the problem solved. And so that's fulfilling for me as well, which is just surrounding yourself with bright, curious, low eco minds. And I think third is gosh, AI. I'm just excited to get into the weekend so I can grab my cup of tea on a Saturday morning and do some coding or with some agents or try the latest trading tools out there. And so I think that the combination of those three things is probably what is the most fulfilling at this moment of time.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, Avar, thank you so much for showing us that even at, you are the frontier of building AI, the 80% of AI company used in the world today. For you, the human truth, the human insight is still the most valuable data you have. So that gave us a lot of confidence. So, for those of you who are listening, if you are looking into getting into the product, the most important is listen to your users, getting their feedback. And if you want to match the speed of vibe coding with vibe user testing, visit us at theysaid.io. And you can sign up a free account to try vibe user testing. I'm Lee Hong Hicken, and this is UX Stories.